Puerto Rico does not need to define its status for us to be treated as humans that deserve good health care, that deserve proper representation, and that deserve human rights. The support for statehood comes from a place of decolonization, a place of equality. We see the rights that states have, for example, access to Medicaid, or the power that a state has to be sovereign, and we don't have that in Puerto Rico. For example, las leyes de cabotaje or the Jones Act, it doesn't permit Puerto Ricans to freely trade with other countries. In Puerto Rico, we have an unpayable debt. And because we are a territory and we cannot refinance our debt as a state could. We should have equal access to healthcare. We should have equal representation in Congress. I want us to find unity because when I interview people, whether they believe in statehood or whether they believe in independence, everyone here in Puerto Rico is worried about corruption and they're worried about economy, they're worried about education. We really care about the same issues, but because we're divided by this status debate, we don't together demand that we get our human rights. Being Puerto Rican is really complicated because when I was born and raised here, I was taught that I was a US citizen. I learned US history. I know the US capitals very well. But when I moved to the United States, I was not treated as a US citizen. I was treated as an other. This rhetoric that Puerto Ricans are fellow US citizens, it does not appreciate the nuance of being a colonized people. I moved to the US to study and to work. And when I lived in the US, I could vote for president. But when you're a Puerto Rican living in Puerto Rico, you cannot vote for president, even though that is the person who is our commander-in-chief and the person who decides where we go to war. If you compare how the response was in Harvey and how it was in Puerto Rico, you see that we did not get all the help, the aid that we needed. We're still waiting for funds, and it's 3 years later. In general, there are just more people in Puerto Rico that want something different, that we no longer want to be a colony. We want to have our full rights as humans in this earth. And so I think with this plebiscite, it's really important to know that a lot of people see it as a waste of money because it is non-binding. I think what a lot of Puerto Ricans really want is a binding plebiscite that the Congress approves in order for us to truly make a decision.